is it that time consuming? Like, not really. So yeah, I say underrated. Papa.
All right, welcome back to the latest episode of Game Day Glare. I'm Lance. I'm with E. This is the podcast for sports videographers. How you doing, E?
Good, yourself?
Yeah, pretty good. We were just talking off cam about snowing again here in Montreal, and me and E are both fed up with the snow. So we're looking to have a little bit of fun. So today we thought we'd answer some of the questions that we got throughout last couple months, last year. A lot of people, send us DMs and stuff and ask like videography questions and that. So we thought we'd do our annual overrated, underrated episode or episodes, depending on what we get through. Kind of like a light episode to kind of answer all your questions. And, if you guys have any more questions that we didn't answer by the time we're done with this series, please send us a DM and ask away, because we're glad to help. And it's always interesting whenever we do this. E and I's perspective sometimes are exactly the same, sometimes they're completely opposite, but it's always nice to get feedback from a colleague on topics that everybody in sports videography does ask.
It's true. No, it's cool. It's also interesting when people have the same questions as you do. Like I'm insecure about a lot of things in sports videography. So when people ask me questions about it, I'm like, oh, so I'm not the only one. But
Well, even like E and I, like just before we press record, I was talking about I was working with the 35-150 on a Tamron. I was having a couple issues, a couple things I didn't like with it, but other things I did like about it. But it's good to get feedback from other people who use the same equipment, who are in the same industry, because sometimes it's just a little tip or a trick that can really change the output of your project, your shot, and that. So that's what this is kind of really all about. So you want to dig into it, or what, or anything you want to add before any new life updates, anything like that you want to throw in? No,
I'm boring.
none of the above. All right,
That's
so
good.
I'll start asking the first question. So something we always get asked now is 4K overrated for sports reels. And the way that at least I assume when we get asked this question, a lot of people is like on the export, or is it the filming part? So what do you think, E, for 4K? Like I don't really export a lot of stuff in 4K. A lot of my clients and stuff want it in 1080. I film in 4K. Then I can punch in that. But when I do my own stuff, I do 4K all way. What about you? What do you think? Is it overrated, underrated, or what do you suggest?
Well, things depends. Like if we're talking like 16:9 landscape, then I would definitely export in 4K. But if for Instagram reels and any vertical content, then yeah, it's just 1080 by 1920. So for that reason, I think it's slightly overrated. I think obviously filming in 4K gives you more flexibility, but is it necessary? If you're trying to be the goal on Instagram is to be creative first and foremost. So if buying a camera that can film in all sorts of frame rates and do everything you need it to do in 1080 is what you can afford, it's more than enough to get that done. So to try to wait for 4K as if it was going to make a difference is ridiculous in a way. What do you think?
I agree.
See, coming down with a hammer.
I do think 4K is a bit overrated, but I do love 4K because I do love the higher quality. And now a lot of the new cameras out there are actually like 6K down sampling to 4K. So I mean, what you got to do is really figure out what you're filming for and where the output is, and then you can decide if you need it or not. Because some people, it could be hardware issues. If you're filming in 4K and your computer's older, well, yeah, it's going to be slower in that. So you might not need to go with the highest quality possible.
And it's also not all 4K is amazing as well. So like if we're talking like the 4K of a mirrorless camera, then great if you have it, obviously. Because I think like for most people, it's not necessarily, oh, I have it, should I use it or not? It's more, should I spend money on a camera that can do 4K 60? Because at the moment, the camera that I can afford can only do 4K 30, for example. So like if you can afford it, like do it. But if you can't, like it's not that necessary. But at the same time, like I was saying, not all 4K is created equal. So like if like the 4K on your phone or the 4K on an action cam might not be as people assume that it's going to be the same exact quality as on a mirrorless camera. Like it's not the same thing. The bit rate is different. The frame rate sometimes is variable. Like there's a lot of things that can degrade your image pretty quickly, even though it's in 4K. So keep that in mind. I'm going making a yes or no answer really really long right now, but yeah.
No, but that's a great point because like when we say 4K and you're looking at an action camera on your phone, the 4K is just the size of the image. It's not actually always about the detail in the image. And obviously with a mirrorless camera, your lens, your depth of field, all that makes your image what it is. Where phones, action cams, and that pretty much everything is just in focus and they give you a size. But like what you worked with phone footage, I've worked with phone footage. Sometimes you do get that variable kind of frame rate and it's tricky to work with, and especially iPhone footage when you put it in Premiere Pro, you have to grade it a bit because even it kind of boosts it up and makes it brighter than it actually is on your phone. So 4K is not always created equal, but I guess the size is, right?
Yeah, but doesn't mean it's going to look better. That's the thing.
No.
Yeah.
All right, next up, your favorite. Is 120 frames overrated outside of highlight videos?
Outside.
Yeah.
Well, I think yes, like inside or outside. I think 120 frames is overrated. I've definitely fell, in that trap in the past where I was filming everything in 4K 120 just because I bought a Sony FX3 and I could. But now I'm way more. I realize that filming in 4K 60, first of all, smaller files, and second of all, it's just easier. Like it looks better if you're not gonna slow down everything, and yeah, just easier to manage overall. If you're not gonna slow down your a lot of your clips to like 20% speed, it's just easier to manage, especially from a filming perspective. Like it means that my shot is not gonna like I'm not gonna have to be shooting at 12,800 ISO all the time because I'm shooting in 120 with a shutter speed of 1 over like 400 or something like that. Like if I'm shooting at 4K 60, my shutter speed is lower, my ISO is lower, so my image is cleaner, so all these things. So to that perspective, like yeah, from that perspective, I think that 4K 120, well 120 anyway, is overrated.
Yeah, I think it's a bit overrated too. I mean, I don't see myself slowing things down to 20% a lot. You know, where 60 at 40%, I feel is slow enough for the majority of stuff I do. There are times where I will use 120 frames because I have a certain idea, a certain vision. Yes, go for it. But to film everything at 120 all the time, no, it's overrated. Save yourself the hard drive space.
But to me, it's more about the filming, to be honest. Like now that I think about it, because I have the space, so it is. But at the same time, I have the space now, but like eventually it'll become a problem, and then there'll be tons of footage that I kind of don't want to get rid of, and now but it's all shot in 120, and I'll probably think, well, if I had switched earlier, I wouldn't have that problem. So yeah, anyway. Next.
All right. You do the next one. I'll let you do the next one.
Is 10-bit color overrated?
Yes and no. Okay. And this is why. I think if you film in like S-Cinetone for a fast turnaround project and you nail your colors, you're great. You have no issues at all. But log is worth it when you have multiple projects, when you're going to be reusing that footage.
And also, we're not in log yet. We're in 10-bit color.
Oh, sorry, 10-bit. Sorry, 10-bit. It's true. I jumped ahead. I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. So 10-bit color. Yes, I think it's worth it. Just to have the control of my image to correct any imperfections I did when I was filming. Because, sometimes you're rushing. Sometimes you don't always have the exact right white balance. Having that 10-bit color definitely helps you achieve all of that.
Yeah, well, I'd say like this, like specifically 10-bit color, I think is a bit overrated because a lot of people like they want to have it, but they don't really want to color grade that much. And then so if you're not going to color grade, then it's probably not that necessary. But I think that using a high bit rate is way underrated, just because that's something that people don't really understand what the bit rate does. So the only thing that they definitely understand is that the files are big, so they'll take it down a notch, just to have smaller files, because they probably have like a smaller SD card or not a lot of storage on their computer or hard drives. But at the end of the day, like, it's the bit rate that makes your image look good. Like, that's more than 4K. Like, if you have like a 1080p clip at a very high bit rate, it's gonna look better than a 4K image at a low bit rate. So from that perspective, like 10-bit comes with a high bit rate, so I'd say it's underrated.
And you do notice, like, so I don't know, when I started, it was S-Log2 and 8-bit. And when that 10-bit option came out, you did see the quality in the image in that. So it does make a difference.
Well, so
All right. So
guess what the next question is?
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I kind of get it wrong. So is log footage worth it for fast turnarounds?
I'll let you start, since you're so eager to talk about it.
That's it. So I think log footage is great to have complete control, and if you're going to be reusing the footage in that. But I think S-Cinetone has its place also, because the colors come out of the camera really, really good. And it speeds up your process. It's one less step. So if you do nail your white balance and nail your settings, you're good to go. And you don't have to worry about that extra step. So I do feel like log footage isn't always the way to go when you have a fast turnaround.
I disagree. I think it's underrated. Depends on the camera, obviously, but like, if you look at me on my FX3, I think if you're shooting in S-Log3, like I was saying earlier, like, the second base ISO is 12,800, which is huge. And if you're filming in S-Cinetone, all of a sudden that second base ISO drops to, like, I think 2,500 or something like that. So it's a huge difference. And so for that reason, you're way better to shoot in S-Log3, because you can film at a base ISO that is not as clean as the first one, but close to it, way closer than if you were filming at 10,000 ISO, for example, which is lower. But all that to say that just for that reason, it is worth shooting in S-Log3 if you're using an FX3. And it's the same principle with other Sony cameras that have like S-Log3 in them, like, usually, and that have like a second base ISO. That second base ISO is highest in S-Log3. It always goes down in the other ones, in the picture profiles. So for that reason, it's way underrated in my opinion. And the idea that it adds a step in to your workflow. I mean, technically, if you expose correctly, all you need to do is just add a conversion LUT, which is basically 2 clicks, and all your clips have the same conversion LUT on them and look exactly the way your S-Cinetone footage would have come out straight out of camera. So it's really like a couple clips and everything has a LUT on it. Is it that time consuming? Like, not really. So yeah, I say underrated.
Papa. You gave your answer. You said it's 2 clicks. So that's time consuming. Those 2 clicks are time consuming, my friend.
Yeah, but if they give you like an extra 6,000 ISO, I think half a second is well worth it.
All right, next up. Is shooting wide open, example f.2.8 2.8 or lower, overrated?
Not if you're filming in a low light situation. So no, I don't think it's. I typically shoot at f4, but if needs be, I'm glad I have it. So I'd say, I wouldn't say it's underrated, but it's not overrated.
No, I mean, there's definitely having a faster lens with a 2.0 or 2.8 is definitely worth it, especially like in gym situations, basketball, stuff like that with low lighting. Yes. Do you need to be open all the way? No. when I first started using mirrorless and that, I was like open all the way, all the time. But then you kind of realize, like, especially with these with the automatic focus and all that, being open all the time isn't always the best for your image. So, try and figure out where you go. Like you said, you shoot f4 a lot. I do the 3.2 sometimes. You don't always have to be open, because especially in our variable lenses, being one stop after is actually a sharper image than being wide open.
Yeah, no, that's true.
I do have a couple other questions. So that the people had asked that I sprinkled in this section. So what specs do people overthink the most?
Overthink. Probably I don't know, what's spec? That's a good question. I was gonna say the white balance, in the sense that no one is really convinced that they have the good colors, but also at the same time, a lot of people just stay on automatic. So I don't know if it's over.
No, but I
But
actually, white balance is very tricky to, because even me, like I have an app that I use and I have a good eye for my white balance and that, but I'm always double, triple checking my white balance because I never feel like I nailed it right away.
Mm.
Then when I see the footage, I bring it home, I do. But in cam, I find it's tough to trust your white balance. But you do have to, like, I do have a rule. Like, once I set my white balance, that's my white balance. So then if I'm not happy with it after, it's one adjustment for all the clips.
But I think, like, I think the settings that people, if you think about it, like the settings that people overthink the most are the ones that they don't trust that they'll do the right thing, so they put it in auto, so just leave the camera to make the decision that they're not, that they don't have the courage to take themselves. So it's white balance, ISO sometimes, and definitely focus.
Okay. Next up, what settings do you rely on without even thinking about it?
What do you mean?
So what presets or something do you have on your camera that's like a go-to?
Well, S-Log3, I guess.
I was gonna say, like, your mode, your modes on your camera. So your 1, 2, 3, or whatever you have. I say, like, having those set properly. All mine are set like so. Mode 1 is 24 frames. Mode 2 is 60 frames. Mode 3 is 120. And I have the white balance always set to 56K. So when I turn it on, I switch to that mode. The worst thing, and they're already at S-Log and all that. I just have to adjust the white balance. But I always have it set at 56K, so I know where I am in all those cameras whenever I switch the mode, and then I just have to adjust accordingly. And it saves a lot of time knowing that, especially if I want to switch a shot between 60 and 120, well, I just press one button and then I just change the white balance to what I had it on the other clip, and I'm ready to go. It's like dummy proof for me.
Which is definitely needed.
exactly. All right, and last little question in this one. So what did you care about early on that doesn't matter anymore?
So much.
People's opinions.
Yeah, exactly. What did I care? Well, probably what you're saying about the aperture earlier. Like, I was probably, the lower my f-stop, the more cinematic I thought everything looked. Yeah, it's probably that, and probably 120 as well. Like I was saying, I used to shoot everything at 120, thinking it was the coolest shit. Now I'm realizing that it's not always necessary. So yeah, those are probably the main two. What about you?
The first time you do film 120 and you bring it home and you put it in your computer and you watch it back, you're like, wow, it's pretty cool how slow you can get it. But then you realize, like, okay, not every shot is going to be in slow mo. So is that how you fell in love with 120 or what? See, I didn't fall in love with 120 because my camera couldn't do it, so I had to learn with 60.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there was that, but then yeah, it's just the ability to really, like, because it's also like, if you want to do like speed ramping, when you're going like from fast to slow, like, you want that slow to, like, the bigger the difference between the two, the more impact it has. So obviously with the fast part, depending on what you're doing, like, you can't go that fast. Like, yeah, it can't look weird. You can maybe go to like 110, 115% speed, like, if you want, but you can't really go past that. So by slowing down, the going slower on the other side, that makes that difference bigger, and it makes it more impactful if you're doing these speed ramps like on the beat or whatever. So from that perspective, like I really loved the 120, and I still do. It's just that sometimes, yeah, is it because at the end of the day, it's just like, what type of edit am I doing? Like for me, if I was like filming always for hype reels and highlights and things like that, I'd probably still be filming a lot in 4K 120, to be honest. But these days, most of my shooting is either for my YouTube videos or for game recaps, things like that. And I'm like, well, do I really need, like in a game recap, like how many times am I going to slow down a clip to 20% speed? Like, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I don't know what the question
Um,
was, but
no, it was the question. You answered the question. It was, what did you care about early that doesn't matter anymore? Um, I'm going to go a little off topic, but what I cared about earlier that I don't care anymore is when I was purchasing gear, I was really concerned about like brands and trying to get everything like the same brand and like let's say the DJI mics and DJI this and DJI that are Tamron lenses, all Tamron lenses and that. And I feel like there's been a shift with gear in the last 2 years where new companies have emerged. And now I'm more on like, hey, what works, what's reliable, and I don't care what the name is anymore. And I felt like I'll call it a brand, Hollyland. I feel like a group like Hollyland 3 years ago, I looked at their mics like they were just little YouTube mics, not YouTube mics, but like little interview mics for quick reels and stuff like that, and they hooked up to a phone. And now I've seen how that company's just grown and are making great stuff. Like you get their Pro mic kit has 32-bit float, even comes with its own wireless headset, so you don't have to plug into your camera. You can check your audio right away. Comes with the lavs. You can get a 2 mic set, a 4 mic set. So I feel like gear is changing and new brands are always emerging. And I feel like that kind of stigma that I had about brands and labels and quality that has completely changed because there's some great companies out there that are putting out some great gear that I probably wouldn't have trusted a year or two ago. And it's thanks to creators like even like you, thanks to creators like you. Like when you showed me the iCobra, no, but when you showed me the iFootage monopod, like I never really heard of that company before and that, and it was great. And I looked at a couple other ones, and this one had all the features I wanted, but I never really heard of that company. I wouldn't have trusted that company. I was too busy looking at like Small Rig or stuff like that, or Manfrotto. Where now all these other companies are coming out with sometimes better products. It's just they're not as well known. So that's one thing that for me that's changed. That it used to matter to me, and now it doesn't really matter to me if my camera gear doesn't all match and isn't all the same and all that. Like I want equipment that does the job, that will last, and that I can trust.
yeah, no, I agree. I agree, but at the same time, like these brands have to kind of prove that they have to make a name for themselves. It's not just because there's a new brand with a new product that it's good. So it takes time to build that trust.
Hollyland, I feel, has really just grown. Even on one shoot, I use those headsets so we can talk to other people, and you just put your thing down and you're talking right away, and they work so good. Now that I've used that brand a couple times, I'm really trusting it. I'm feeling like, wow, they do make really great products. From when I first saw them, it was like a little mic that you plugged into your phone and had a little mic, and you would do little interviews on the street. That was it. But like it's neat how these companies are evolving and offering us, new products for sports videography and videography in general. And it's not sponsored. This show is not sponsored, by the way. Okay.
Exactly.
All right. Are full frame cameras overrated for sports? So, example, if you have an FX3 or an FX30,
Yeah,
because I only have one. You have both, so that's what I'm asking you.
yeah, no, I think if you can afford it, like if money is no object, like definitely underrated for the full frame because again for lighting purposes, like that's like sports is one of the situations in videography where you have zero control on your lighting and you can't add any more than what's in front of you. Like it's not like you can add like spotlights or anything. So to be able to have the flexibility to film in low light and all that sort of stuff, like it's a game changer for sure. So full frame camera will definitely help you with that, keep your image clean in low light situations. And well, there's a limit obviously, but that limit is way is way further than with the APS-C cameras. So just for that reason, yeah, I'm team full frame all the way.
I don't think full frame camera is overrated. I mean, you're getting your best bang for your buck with a full frame camera. But I have a Sony A7 IV. When I shoot in 60 in sports, I've used it. I'm cropped, and I've gotten some great shots with that crop sensor. The reason I do like a crop sensor from time to time is you do get that extra reach on your lenses. So, say if you don't have a 70-200 and you have like a 35-150 or a 28-75 on that crop sensor, you will punch in more and it gives you a bit more play. So I think that is a good option. Um, it really depends on what gear you have. Make the most out of it. But if I have the choice, I would take a full frame camera over a crop any day. So yeah,
All right. Next, are Sony cameras overrated or underrated?
I think Sony cameras are still the bar. Where most creators are. I don't think they're overrated at all. I think they're very valuable, and I think they have, like, for the price you pay for them, for what you get, I think it's great. I do feel a little bit scared lately, though, that Nikon and Canon are pushing all these new cameras, and Sony, like, I was so excited for the A7 V, but it is still missing some features that I thought they would have by now that other camera companies are that already released. So what well, they have their 6K now, where ours is still like the new Sony A7 V is really 7K, but it's still a 4K. They basically just upgraded. It's the same sensor. They upgrade the chip a bit, but like Nikon with this new Z Red camera, like it's pretty crazy. Even just the LCD screen, everything is technically better than the Sony camera, except for one thing: when you do shoot with the red codec, forget about it. The clips are so heavy and so hard to work with that everyone's complaining about. So I feel like Sony does need to upgrade, but they're taking their time. So maybe they have an FX3 release. I've been waiting for years for the A7S4, which there was all these rumors, then they're killing it, then they're coming out with new stuff and that. And I feel like they made a weird choice with that FX2. Like, I feel like that FX2 camera, now that you came with the A7 V, doesn't really fit anywhere because it's basically an A7 IV and an FX body. So Sony has done some weird choices lately. But if you talk to or work with any other creator, I'd say 80% of them all have Sony. So I feel like Sony is still, the standard. And it's always nice when you work with other creators and you guys have the same codecs, the same cameras, you can swap lenses and that. And Sony, the thing that they do the best is their ecosystem. Like the E-mount fits on all their current cameras. So for lenses and that, I could swap a body, no problem, and all my lenses are still good. So Sony does think about that. The batteries are all the same. The accessories are all the same. So that's where they really make up for maybe not coming out with the newest tech in camera. Because maybe for some reason they feel like, listen, it's not really worth it. It's not really what we're putting out. The standard is just as good. But they are conscientious of making sure that everything else stays the same, which saves us money and helps the end user.
Yeah. Well, I think, like, for example, you just mentioned a few minutes ago that like 4K is overrated. And now you're saying like, well, my new Sony doesn't have 6K. So yeah, I think these things are not that necessary, first of all. But I also think that
Way to call me out. Way to call me out.
No, but like, I mean, that's what, like, that conversation, like, people like one brand over the other, and like, oh, why would you buy a Sony when like my Nikon has this and that and this, and so I'm like, for me, it's like any camera that came out after 2020 is an awesome camera for the price. Like, there's no bad cameras. There's just expensive cameras and cheaper cameras. So if you spend more money, you get a better camera. If you spend less money, you get a less good camera, but still a very good camera for what you paid for. Like that's what it is. Like it's not like there's a secret camera that's better than the other ones and yet cheaper. Like it doesn't really happen. Like and if it does, it's because we're sort of in between like new technology and old technology, and then this one camera comes out at the price of the old ones, but with these new things, and then all the other companies are going to do the same thing. So then we plateau again. So anyway, all that to say that there's not one brand that's like necessarily like way better than the others. But what you do get with Sony is the fact that everybody has one. So, like you said, if you're filming and sharing content with other people, if you're working as a team, the fact that you all have the same codecs, the same, or even better, the same camera makes it a lot easier in the edit. And also resale value. Like if you're buying lenses, you're buying stuff when you want to sell it, it's a lot easier to sell a Sony lens than a Nikon lens because there's just going to be way more people interested. So it's like a car. Like when you're buying a car, thinking I'm probably going to end up selling it once I'm done with it in 5-6 years or whatever. Um, you're much better with like a known brand, a car that everybody buys, than to have like this, like I use when I was driving in Australia, I had a Peugeot, which is like a French European brand. Like it's not the most popular brand in the world. So selling that is more complicated than selling a Toyota, for example. So for those reasons, I think like Sony all the way, because it's a safe environment. Everybody uses them. You know what you're getting into. The quality is good. Like you said, like the lenses, everything is just it's a great ecosystem. So for those reasons, I love Sony, but it doesn't mean that Sony cameras are better than other cameras. All cameras are good.
One other thing that Sony does very well too is for the entry level cameras, they have a nice lineup of cameras. So like if you go into the ZV series and all the way up to the FX3, you kind of have a camera for every stage of your growing career and your price point. So I know if I want to buy a ZVE1 or something, let's say, well, as a third camera in that's a great option. I don't always have to buy that big full frame camera. So Sony does do a good job at that too, where I find the other companies, there's bigger gaps in between their cameras because Sony does have a lot of different cameras to choose from.
Yeah, and also like you were saying about the lenses, the E mount. Canon obviously at some point made the switch to from EF to RF, and that's all great, but RF lenses, like the good ones, are very expensive. So if you buy, let's say you're in your budget, you're a beginner, you're starting, and you're buying like a Canon R10 or something, reasonably priced, but you still have to buy R, and like you don't have to, but that's the thing, you're stuck kind of buying EF lenses, because if you're not able to spend more than $1,000 on your camera, you're not going to spend like $2,500 on a 24 to 70 mil lens. So so you're going to end up buying the EF equivalent and work with the adapter and all that sort of stuff. But so like it's kind of, it's defeating, and it kind of feels like what am I doing here if I'm buying like a brand new camera, but then I can't afford the lenses that go with it. So from that perspective, like Sony gives you a lot more options.
Yeah. All right. Next, are phone cameras underrated now?
Yeah, a little bit. Yes. I think I was the first one to kind of, shit on phone cameras and saying like it's not good. It's not gonna help you film anything that looks good and things like that, like many years ago. But now, and I've made videos about this. Like I think that there's context to anything, and there's definitely a context for this. Like for outdoor sports, unless you're just after a wide shot, it's going to be a lot harder, I think. But in saying that, I haven't tested my new iPhone 17 in the football game, for example. Like I'm waiting for football season to start here in Canada. But yeah, I do think that now with phones, you can definitely not you're not going to produce anything comparable to my FX3, for example, but you you can definitely do something that's way that's more than good enough for a recruiting video, or a game recap, or a coaching, like something that you want to film just to look at your footage afterwards, or show the kids, or put it on YouTube or something like that. Like phones can do that now, like especially if you're, if you get up and try to be as close as possible to the action, and you obviously have like a phone that has like one of the better cameras. Like it's not any phone, like it's not any camera either. Like there's a big difference between a Sony ZV-10 and a Sony FX 30 or 3. So same thing applies to phones. So as long as you've got the right phone with the right camera, I think you can do some great things.
Yeah, I think phone cameras are great actually, and I love it just because you have it with you. You know, there's plenty of times where I pull up my phone and I film with something that now it doesn't always make it into my edit, but there has been times where I've sprinkled in a couple phone shots into an edit and no one was any of the wiser. So I think the phones are just getting better and better. And honestly, even like the test that you did with your iPhone 17 Pro, how you can zoom in now so much more than just the 16 Pro that I have, and every year it's getting better and better and better. And we are talking high-end phone cameras. I'm not talking about if you have an iPhone 12 or something like that. Like if the newest phones that come out, the cameras are just getting better and better, and they're really good. Like you could use it for even this. We can use it right now as my podcast camera instead if I wanted to, and it would be pretty decent. Gives you a lot of options that those phone cameras that you don't always think of.
But one thing to keep in mind though is that like the reason why cameras will still exist is that, like, well, I can't say forever, but I mean, like those images that come out of your camera, whether it's photos or video, like they're made to look awesome on a phone screen, like on a small phone screen. Like any photo that you take with your iPhone, you look at it on your phone, it looks amazing. If you zoom in on it, or if you look at it on a computer, then all of a sudden you start seeing a bit more noise that you weren't seeing on your computer because it was way smaller. So there's one thing to keep in mind. Like if you're editing videos mainly that are be consumed on phones, it's going to look amazing. But if you're doing it for a big screen, that's where it can get a bit tricky.
All right, next up. Are action cams and 360 cameras still gimmicky?
Well, I don't think they're gimmicky, but everything I just said about phones kind of apply to this, in my opinion. Like they're way better than they were. Uh, they can get you a great quality shot, especially if you're filming from up close, especially if you're filming in great lighting conditions. But they're also gonna look way better on the phone on a smaller screen than on the big screen, whether it's a television or a computer. So so yeah, there's limitations, but they're definitely way better now than they were 5 years ago.
I feel like they've gotten so much better, especially now that they're 10-bit. They shoot in log. Uh, they're becoming more user friendly with, say, the 360 editing software for after shoot and that too. It gives you so much more flexibility, especially the 360 cams. Like it films everything. You just pick after and post what you want to aim it at. So it gives you peace of mind. And I think they're perfect as backup cameras in case you feel like you might miss something. And
I agree.
they're getting better and better and better. Like even now you can change the lenses. There's always a new options and new features that are making it the quality higher and higher. And like there's like some of the 360 cameras are 8K now. Now it's not a true 8K, it's really 4K, but it's filming so much information is equivalent to an 8K. So yeah, you could zoom in for days on it. All right, next up. Is
Um,
autofocus overrated or a non-negotiable?
Well, I think these days you need to have autofocus on your camera just to make it easier on yourself in a lot of situations. But like for sports specifically, I think it's overrated in the sense that people think that because they got a better autofocus, the player that they want to be in focus is automatically going to be in focus more often than not, and it's not the case. Like better autofocus on the camera means whoever the camera decides should be in focus is going to be in focus quicker, but that doesn't mean that it is who you want it to be. Because like for videographers, when you're watching like YouTube videos about new cameras and say, oh, look at this amazing autofocus, and then they move around the room and the camera sticks on them, and even in the darkness and even in whatever, autofocus never lets go. And it's like, yeah, it's amazing, but you're alone in that frame. Like add 8 other people and they're all kind of the same size and they're all going in different directions, having a better autofocus is not going to make the camera realize that the guy with the ball is the one that should be in focus. So that's never going to change. Doesn't matter how great your autofocus is. So until you can actually say, hey, this is the guy, and stick on him no matter what. And even then, like in sports, there's obviously passes. There's so it doesn't mean, even if the camera could lock onto someone, no matter what gets in your shot in between you and the subject, you'd still need to switch your focus from one player to the other at some point. So at the end of the day, like, autofocus is not going to be the answer to all your out of focus shots. Like, there's always going to be a part of responsibility on the user to either touch focus or film in manual focus, or just film at a wider aperture, more narrow, sorry. So yeah, it's autofocus is not the answer to all your problems. Like, you have to do some of the work.
Yes. Autofocus has made a huge jump. Like when mirrorless cameras first came out, there was no real autofocus and it was very difficult to use. I think the autofocus, a non-negotiable part for me, is it's so nice when you have, say, a post game scrum or an interview in that. Once you set your focus, you're good to go and you just leave it on auto. You don't have to worry. Like right now, we're on autofocus. There's no issues. There's no nothing. That's where it really comes in handy. I was telling I was using the 35-150 Tamron, and I was filming hockey, and my autofocus kept trying to clip the glass, that little edge of the glass, and I kept switching to manual. So you will have those moments where you need manual focus and you need to just do it yourself because something's in the way. And that is something that's always getting better with the autofocuses, but you have to go between both auto and manual, especially in sports. It's the only way to really nail all your shots.
I agree. So, auto, while we're in the subject of auto, what do you think of auto ISO?
Don't know, never used it. I'm not sure what you're even talking about. Auto ISO, honestly, I never use. I never use in video. I have used it before in photo, for photos, and it's helped. The only thing that I don't like about auto ISO, especially in photos, is it just tries to give you the brightest image, and it doesn't. The camera does not care about adding grain. We care about seeing the grain, but the camera does not. So I try to avoid auto ISO as much as possible. But if you are to use it because you are not sure of an ISO that you should be in, I would use it, look at what the camera does, and then switch it to manual and manually put it into that thing, because you do not want to be using auto ISO, especially with ISO, when you move your camera or something in a brighter spot and it change on you and you come back and has to readjust to that image. So I always avoid auto ISO. It is a great tool, but use it wisely.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think, like, a lot of people, like, so many times people are like, oh, I'm using the same camera as you, or the same, like or something close, and they're like, I can't understand why your footage looks so much better than mine. It's just managing your ISO and your exposure in general. But people tend to just stick to, like, the same shutter speed, the same this, the same that, and then they just play with the ISO up and down, or they leave it on auto. And yeah, so that introduces grain. So, like, yeah, I'm like you. I never use auto. I always try to leave my ISO on the native ISO values, and obviously that's because I have a camera that allows me to do this. But yeah, using the native ISO and just playing with the shutter speed or the aperture to make up for a darker area or something like that is going to result in much better quality footage. So that's what I tend to do. And the only time I use auto ISO is when I'm filming. Let's say I'm doing like a traveling kind of shot, and I'm going from super dark to, let's say I'm walking into a building. So coming from outdoors where it's broad daylight and then going inside, if I try to switch the brightness myself on the camera as I'm doing this, it's going to be choppy. Like, you're definitely going to be able to tell when I start bringing down the ISO or whatever else. But if I leave it on auto, it's just going to be more of a smooth sort of transition. So like for traveling shots like that, either walking into a building or walking out or being inside and then filming through a window all of a sudden. A shot like that, using auto can help because that transition is going to be a lot smoother. But other than that, yeah, manual all the way.
There is one actual, two other questions. So, what tech do people fight that actually helps? I guess ISO could be one of them, but is there any other tech that our camera has, any automatic settings that people seem to fight with? Well, kind of they put it on, but it doesn't, it kind of ruins their image or doesn't give them the exact image quality or settings that they thought it would. I feel like white balance is actually one of them. Because especially like so in sports, um, you have your camera. So say if I'm in the glass beside the glass filming hockey, and I kind of move my camera to the side when the play is off, and I come back after, my color always shifts if I'm in auto white balance, and it takes a while to get back to the original color that the ice is. So say it goes a little yellow and then comes back. So I feel like that's when I have used auto white balance, I do feel like I'm fighting it.
Oh yeah, no, well, I agree, yes, but I'd say yeah, anything that people, like I said earlier, anything that people put on auto, it's because they don't really know what they're doing or trust that they know what they're doing, so they're scared and they let the camera decide. Um, but in saying that, I don't know. Yeah, yeah, I think that's yeah. There's not one that comes to mind. Like
They all have their own little thing, right? Like
yeah,
anything time you use automatic, I feel like I'm fighting it a bit because it never does exactly what I want to do when I want it.
yeah, that's why I don't use it.
That's it. Well, no, it's way better to be manual. But there are times like look with your tunnel shot that you explained that. That's a time that you
Yeah,
could use that auto ISO, and it does help you because doing it manually wouldn't be as smooth. And you're willing to live with that consequence for that shot, that one shot. All right, next up. Is using a gray card or white balance overrated in run and gun?
a little bit. I mean, if you have the time, it's obviously a good thing. But I personally don't really. I kind of trust my instincts and my eyes. So if I see something white, or I look basically, I look up, look down, look up, look down. It kind of looks the same. I trust it, but I also know, if I'm outdoors, broad daylight, 56 probably where I should be. Um, Depending the time of day, maybe sometimes like it can look kind of bluish, so I'll adjust. But if I'm indoor in the gym, I know that I'm probably going to be between 41 and 48 ish. So yeah, I'm talking color temperature here, by the way. So yeah, I'm trying to. I know where I should probably be, but then I'll play around with it, just to make sure. But then I try to, at the end of the day, if I'm off a little bit, I'm gonna be in the edit anyway, playing with the look, adding LUTs, all these things. So just adjusting the color and then copy pasting that adjustment is not a big deal. So I'm not too fussed about it.
Yeah, I think if you have the time, get the proper white balance. If not, then this is a time where you could, if you're running around all over, this is a time where you can use your automatic white balance. But what I suggest is I had on my camera, if I use auto white balance, I have a lock where one of my buttons, I programmed it where it locks the auto white balance. So once I get to a setting, so say if I'm going from ice to locker room, well, if I have an auto white balance, once the auto white balance is where I want to be, I'll lock it and then I don't have to worry. And then it's like a manual white balance. So basically, I let the camera guess the white balance for me, but then I lock it in. So then I know if I have to adjust in that, everything that I film in that area will be the same color. So that's a little hack that I use. But obviously, man, if I can get a proper white balance, I'm getting the white balance and doing it
Yeah.
manually. Yeah.
So what about variable NDs?
Totally worth it.
Hmm.
You want to control your camera as much as you can, and NDs achieve that for you, especially if you have to film stuff outside. Like you want to have a bit of shallow depth sometimes outside in that, and if you don't have a variable ND, you can only crank your shutter so much, whereas with it before it starts looking a little weird. So I think NDs are worth it. And whenever I buy a lens, it's the first thing I buy is a ND. Now, not all NDs are built the same. There's some cheaper ones and there's some more expensive ones. And the way I look at it is like this: if I spend all this money on this nice lens and that, then I might as well get a decent ND that I can use, that I can trust. And so we both have the Polar Pro Peter McKinnon ones. They are pricey. The reason why I'm willing to pay that price is because, unlike other NDs, they have the stops on them. So I know if I'm 2 stops, 3 stops, 4 stops, 5 stops. Where I have other variable NDs where you're just twisting, you kind of get your image where you want and you stop. And there is no real indicator on where you are. So I prefer to pay the higher price for that ND because I know exactly where I am. I know exactly how I can mimic that shot later on. Or if my surroundings change, I know I could do 1 click and I'm only 1 stop. I don't have to kind of twist until I feel like I'm good enough. So NDs are worth it, but NDs, it's one of those things that I feel like we shouldn't have to buy. I feel like the cameras should have them built in, like we used to have. But they do make your shot that much better when you do have them. And filters in general too. Filters in general are very, very helpful.
Well, like you said, like they're not all built the same, but like, yeah, I agree with you. Like they're definitely necessary outdoors. Got to be careful because every time you add a layer in front of your lens, that's an extra layer that can damage the quality of your image if that layer is either poor quality or dirty, simply. So, so be mindful of that. But other than that, I think, yeah, they're definitely necessary. And they, like you said, like there's a limit to how much you can push your shutter speed. And also, like, people don't realize sometimes that even with your ISO, like we talked about going too high, but going way lower than your base ISO is definitely way better than going higher, but you do lose some dynamic range. So like you're not gonna add noise, for example. Like if your base ISO is 800, if you're filming at 100, you're not adding noise, but you're losing some dynamic range to your shot. So like it's gonna be a touch more difficult for the camera. And when I said touch, I really mean a touch. Like it's not night and day, but it's going to be a little bit harder for the camera to handle like bright highlights and dark shadows simultaneously. So by staying at your base ISO, which is definitely something I've been talking about this entire episode, that's where you maximize everything about your exposure and your quality and all that. So variable NDs will help you do that, especially outdoors.
Yeah. All right. So I mean that's pretty much our list. Now there are 2 questions. So when do you stop chasing perfect exposure?
Never.
Never, eh?
It's the dream.
No, but no, but ideally that's what you want, right? It's just, do you have time to get your perfect exposure? That's what it really comes down to. It's especially in run and gun and sports night, you don't always have the time if you're switching environments and stuff like that to get the perfect exposure.
Oh yeah, you try to get close to it, but yeah, you don't have to be. You can't overthink it.
No, no. And next up is, where does experience matter more than settings?
Always. See, never and always. Yeah, well, I think experience gets you to a point where you're kind of like me, where when I was talking about white balance, where it's like I kind of know what looks good and what doesn't. And same thing with my focus and same thing with my exposure. Like I don't really use zebras and all that anymore that much because first of all, the cameras are good enough that it's easier to see. Like like filming in log, for example, you used to watch everything in log. So you have to kind of use some instruments to make sure that you're exposed properly, where now you can apply a LUT in camera so everything's easier to manage. And with focus, like if you have like a monitor, it obviously makes it a lot easier than if you're on the LCD screen. So if you have the proper tools, your experience can go a long way in in knowing what's good and what's not, and you're not so heavily relying on on zebras and meters and things like, and false color and all these things, and you can just sort of enjoy your image, your clean image, and just try to focus more on your composition and things like that, and not have all these things like hiding everything because you're afraid to be out of focus, or you're afraid to be overexposed and all these things.
Yeah, and you have to trust your instincts too, right? Like look at your camera, and even sometimes if I'm filming in log and I'm not at plus 1.7, well, it's okay. If I feel like the image is good enough and I'm getting the composition I want, it's fine. Now, listen, we still have a lot more questions than that. So we'll continue them on a next episode. Next episode, we'll be talking more lenses, accessories, game day gear, all those questions and that. Anything you want to add, E, before we wrap it up?
Can't wait. I'm excited.
Can't wait.
I'm coming.
All right, man. Well, that's it for this episode of Game Day Glare. Listen, guys, if you have more questions, send them in. We'd be happy to answer them. I want to thank everyone for sending in questions and that. We broke it down kind of into like topics to kind of go over so they run smoothly. But so next up is gear, lenses, and all game day stuff. All right. Take care, guys.